Hey everyone, Bro here. I'm back with another video for you guys. We are here talking about Foster, Rhode Island. This is a mini village that was supposed to be in Rhode Island. There is a specific place in Foster, Rhode Island that is said to be haunted. I'm not fully sure if it's true or not because I have never been there yet, but we're here today to talk about it. And also, we are going to be talking about Ramtail Mill. I got this idea like the end of last month, and I've been working on the research like this whole time, and it took me a long time, but I finally finished the research. So yes, let us get into the video. And yes, we are going to record at this specific location. I know how to get there, and also I'm going to be talking about it in this video. So, yay! And also, considering it's like an hour and something from where I live, it's going to be a pretty amazing video. There's not much left to this little village because you have to walk on a path to get there, first of all. And second of all, we have to also go behind a cemetery. I will get more into this right now though, so let us get into the history now, guys. There's also a haunted bridge, also a part of near Ramtail Mill. Bleh. And it came up a lot of the time when I was doing the research. We'll talk about that later. Anyway, so Ramtail Mill was listed in 1885 on the Rhode Island Genesis. I'm not fully sure what that means, but it's one of the haunted locations, and during the 1800s it was also considered a haunted place. You guys will find that out more about that more as we talk about it. To find the ruins, you need to find the historic cemetery number 45, which is Hopkins Mill Cemetery, and also Hopkins Mill was also a part of this little village and town that is no longer existing. Like, it's a whole town, or, well, it says village because it wasn't really like that big, and it was a very rural part of Rhode Island for the longest time, so it's hard to get in and out of that place. But the reason why it was a mill town practically, and that's the only reason why it existed. As soon as both of the mills stopped working, or specifically Ramtail Mill stopped working, everybody left, which included the rich families who owned those lands too. They also left eventually. Again, we'll talk about that later in the video because it's way too early to talk about everything because I'm already excited. So Foster Rhode, I already said that. This area in Rhode Island was founded in 1781 after separating from an area in Rhode Island already. I think it's the town that's right next to Foster, Rhode Island. I'm not fully sure, and I can't pronounce it, so we're just gonna say that, honestly. And for the next 100 years or so, it was considered a rough place to live. So since the 1700s into the 1800s, it was a very rough place to live. Nowadays, if the area was still, you know, a town or village, it would actually be flourishing right now because we're here in the modern century. But back in the 1800s and the 1700s, it would make sense on why it was so hard to live there, because this place was like literally in the forest. It wasn't like really attached to anything, but it was a part to another area of Rhode Island that I can't pronounce, so oh well. There was a factory in this village, as I said before. It was the Ramtail Woolen. I think it was like a wool mill, technically, but so it's like spelled W-O-O-L-E-N mill, and it was powered by the river, so it's one of the older mills. So if you watch Outlander, it was like the mill in one of the episodes when Jamie went to go back to the land that he owns because he's a lord in Scotland. Again, if you watch the show, then you know what I'm talking about. But I just felt like bringing that in, like, to explain. So if you've seen any historical shows, that's what the mill would look like practically. And then they turned it into a factory later on, so it was like a mill into a factory. Anyway, I do love Outlander though. This mill existed during the time where mill jobs were very dangerous. So mills and working in the factories were very dangerous during the 1800s. Also, that was also during the popular time of where mills were flourishing and everything, as well as, so like this area was lucky that it didn't get very like corrupted by pollution from the mills because it was a water mill, but there still could be pollution coming out of the mill and factories. So they're pretty lucky that technically it's that area has healed since then because it's literally in the woods. I've seen photos of this place that you're going to see probably like right now that I'm going to show you right now. So like that's kind of what some of the ruins look like. It's right near the river or a brook. And speaking of, this place has a lot of people who haunt this place or said to haunt this place. It's actually a long list of people that I didn't have time to write them all down. But I have like a couple of them, especially like the main one that everybody talks about from when you do the research of this place, if you look it up. Anyway, back to this. So like the mills were actually killing a lot of children, unmarried women, because a lot of women had to go and work at the mills to help out their families. Again, a lot of women used to work in the mills as well as children. These are children and women operating these dangerous machines. A lot of the women would get pulled into the machines and either get extremely injured or they would literally die in like the worst way that I can't talk about on YouTube because they will come after me, even though that there's something more gruesome later on that we're going to talk about in this video. And it really was horrible. And like they technically like the mill machines or the factory machines would be running all day until the workday was done. So that's just terrifying. And women had to literally have to put their hair up instead of having it down because their hair would get caught in the machines. Not that I talked about that here, but like if you ever been in history class in school, they talked about it there. So like that's why I'm saying examples. During May 1822, when the former owner Plague Walker, I think I pronounced his name wrong, so I apologize. So I'm just going to call him Mr. Walker because his first name, no offense, is really weird, had to sell the mill because of debts. So the mill was kind of doing very bad, or at least he was doing really bad with the mill. So the Potter family, because this is going to also come up a little bit later too, but I want to say this for context. So Mr. Walker married Mary Potter, and the Potter family was one of the wealthy families who owned some of the land already in this area of Rhode Island. And they, again, he married Mary, but like the only reason why I know that is like one website actually said that. The other websites didn't really talk about it, so it was quite interesting. So it's just like a little fun fact, I guess. And they did not like Mr. Walker because he was a very cranky, grouchy old dude. But he was a really good night watchman for the mill in the first place. So he would literally walk around the mill at night with his lantern. And he was really good at his job until he wasn't, obviously. And we go into that. So they were having feuds and stuff like that. And I'll get back into this conversation in a bit. But I just want to, because they were trying to get the ownership of the mill from Mr. Walker because he was the main businessman or owner or whatever you want to call it, practically. So instead of handing over and complying to give the ownership over to the Potter family, he went, so it depends, okay, so this story depends on where you actually hear the story before I fully say it, is because when I looked it up twice, there's two different variations of the story. So the one I'm about to tell you is the first one that I learned about during the research. The other one came a little bit later when I was trying to finish up the research and try to get those loose ends practically. And so this is the first story that I heard about this, and this is very gruesome, so I'm warning you guys, this is like 18 and up type of content because it's mature content because this is interesting. Interesting and also sad. So he, instead of giving over the ownership, he locked himself, and he was the only person who actually had the key to the mill and factory. Because he was the owner, there was only one existing key. And so he locked himself in at night. So this is the first story I learned about it, so I'm not sure how true, how it is, how it actually happened. And he offed himself in the building by throat death. That's how he passed away in this variation that I learned about first. And the way people found him was that they saw him in the building on the floor. I don't know how they kind of got in because, again, he locked himself in the building in this variation, so I'm not really sure how they found the body or how they were able to get into it. It never really explained that story, but again, I did research on multiple websites, so it was just quite interesting on how different it was. So it varies depending on where you look it up. I'm not fully sure which one is correct. Anyway, this was one of the incidences that were said to be haunted that made this location haunted. Sorry, I rephrased that. That was one of the incidents that made this location haunted. They say that Mr. Walker's ghost haunts the mill many years after him giving himself away into the mill. Because of that, the machines would turn on and off. There's like poltergeist stuff that happened after he passed away. And it's sad. And I can't talk about the other story yet, but I really want to so bad. So bad. This factory / mill ran until 1850 before closing, and then it was set on fire in 1873 because arsonists thought it would be a good idea to burn the factory. But the reason also why they burnt the factory, and that's why there's only ruins of it now, so there's only like the foundations left of the buildings in the village. The only one that I know that fully exists is the factory and the mill areas, from what I've seen from the photos. Example you're going to see right now. Anyway, they also did this to rid the building or the land of the ghost, which had the opposite effect because the hauntings got worse. Because that's one thing to make them mad and give you paranormal evidence practically, but I don't think you should do arson just to get paranormal evidence, please. Anyway, so Hopkins Mill, Rhode Island, this is also off of Route 6, Foster, Rhode Island, as another way to get to this place. So you have to take Route 6 to get to this location. So Hopkins Mill, I did learn that which is another mill that was in the village or next to the village. A part of the Hopkins family owned it, I think, and that's also the name of the cemetery where you have to go to get to this place. It's a public place to go because people go on this trail all the time to visit and stuff. The cemetery is permanently closed, so if somebody wanted to paranormal investigate, I think you would probably have to find out somehow to get, permission to go inside. You can't just hop the fence. Please don't just do that. You know who I'm talking about, alright? You know who I'm talking about. I know who's watching this, and I know you know who I'm talking about. Okay? You need permission to do this one. People see apparitions at this location from the first owner, or a woman in a white dress who is barefoot, and she has her little bucket getting water. The story on her is that her name is Dolly Cole, and her last name was Hopkins, not Cole, actually, which is weird. So it's Dolly Cole Hopkins. Depending on what website you look at it, actually. But she was one of the sad instances who passed away in the river because she got swept through the current one day when she wasn't paying attention while she was gathering water in her bucket. So it's very sad that happened to her, and I'm not sure what the white dress is. I think it's like what I pictured it when I was like reading the research. I thought that was probably like a night dress or something. Considering it's like the 1800s, so I just figured that it would be like a night dress or like her nightgown, which is also technically called a night dress. But yeah, it's sad. Her family did own the Hopkins Mill. It is sad that she had to pass away that way. Also, she's seen walking around the bridge that I was talking about, the haunted bridge. Okay, that's also literally a part of the land, the location. There was not much about the bridge, and I wasn't sure if I was going to bring it up in this video, but I just decided to bring it up in the video, so yay! Records state that in 1860 she drowned when she dipped her wooden bucket into the water, and the current took her, which I kind of already said that, but I didn't say the date, so it was 1860 that happened. So that was like, literally like after the Ramtail Mill stopped being in business practically, it was like years after practically. So that's quite sad. There's also another female ghost, but they think that it's Dolly, and she's seen on the bridge on Route 6 where Dolly Brook flows. So they named the brook after her, because she kind of passed away in the brook, which they call it a brook, but I think it's a river, actually, considering that was like a mill town, so I just specifically say that. The bridge was a part of the Cole family property. She used to keep watch for the stage that ran through Hopkins Mill. Okay, so I think Okay, so it's confusing because, again, some research, like when I was doing the research, sometimes her last name was Hopkins, so I think the Cole family, she was a part of the Cole family, which was one of the wealthy families that, again, own land in that area. So maybe I got confused. I apologize if I get anything wrong. There's going to be times where there's going to be facts where they're not really correct and stuff like that. Again, that's the sad thing about researching, is that you never know which is real and which isn't, because you also have to filter out a lot of stuff. Also, there was no Wikipedia page either, so like normally when I research, normally the Wikipedia page is normally correct and more accurate, but I couldn't find it, so it was kind of like when I was doing research for my last video, so it was literally like how for the cemetery video I did when I was doing research for that. That one was different because that one also that one did have a Wikipedia page, but I also had to get more information from the other sites. This one did not have one at all, so I was like, dang it. So I had to get like sources from like other places, so I don't really think that it is what it is what it is, honestly. That's all I'm going to say. But she is buried in the Hopkins Mill Cemetery. Also, for the owner of Hopkins Mill, who was William Potter, he owns the property, and he was also buried on the rise above the mill pond. There's not really much about him, but you can see William Potter walk around near the pond, they said. I don't think I wrote that down, but like I remember doing the research, so I've seen it, but I don't think I wrote it down. And then Mr. Walker, as I said, married Mary Potter. Mr. Walker was partners of the Foster Woolen Manufactory, as well as the Potter family. And again, he was a cranky, disagreeable man, but he was a good watchman of the mill at night. But he also was having problems with the Potter family as well. So that's quite interesting. And then also the small village formed around the mills. So it's like, I'm just going to call it a mill town, but they say village on the research, which I think I would just rather say town. But I think it was very small. That's why they call it a village. But I wouldn't really call it a village considering it was in the 1800s. But that's just me. I already talked about this. But one of their fights between the Potter family and Mr. Walker was, it escalated so badly that he actually said this to the family: you'll have to take the key from this mill from a dead man's pocket. That's not exactly what he said, but the grammar was just bad considering it was like the 1800s, but that's what he said to the Potter family. His warnings actually came true May 19th, 1822, which is the same date as I said earlier in this video. So in this story that I was dying to tell you guys, this one's totally different. So the bell did not ring that morning, so everyone was confused. Even the workers were confused. They came to work and then they saw Mr. Walker hanging from the bell rope, and that's why it wasn't ringing. That was terrifying for them to see. And the key to the mill was in his pocket, so they couldn't open the mill until they literally got his carcass down from the rope. So that is very sad. And also, Mr. Walker was only 35 years old at that time. He really did not want to give up the mill. I'm not sure how it was possible for him to be hanging from the rope if the other story is what it is. So I'm not sure which one's true, but there's more poltergeist stuff after this too. So they would keep hearing the bell ringing at midnight, and whenever the Potter family would get up to check the mill, the bell wouldn't be moving at all, or it would be moving by itself. There's nobody ringing the bell with the rope. It kept happening to the point that they had to remove the bell rope, practically. And it's quite interesting. I'm not sure how true this is, but people say that you can still hear the bell ringing even without the building there. So it's like a phantom bell ringing. Again, not sure how that works, but I just thought this would be interesting to share. The locals assumed that Walker committed death and buried his body nearby. So he wasn't buried in the cemetery, he was actually buried on the location. I don't know if they moved his body when the village dispersed or not. I'm not sure. It also didn't explain how Mrs. Walker, who was Mary, because her name changed after she got married to Mr. Walker. So I'm not sure how she felt after, he passed away. So We don't know, because there might be records of it. We don't know, because again, I did extensive research, so the only way I would know is if I would go like to a library to see the records or whatever. Anyway, I already said that. Okay, so we switch. Yeah, so again, so the bell ringing lasted like a whole week, 7 days, till they took the rope down. It would be ringing late at night specifically, so technically Mr. Walker wanted to get his revenge because he was still mad after he passed away. So his revenge was keeping the Potter family up at night practically with ringing the bell. That's assumed. That's not a fact. That's assumed, not a fact, okay? So don't take that words as golden, please. After the bell was removed, they also removed the bell because they could still hear the bell ringing. The water wheel started to turn backwards against the water flow, and that can happen logically sometimes. I can see that happening logically. I don't really think that's anything paranormal, in my opinion. Then they saw somebody with a lantern who turned out to look like Mr. Walker's ghost. Fearing that the bell was cursed, so the workers left the small village, and then that was formed because the mill slowly disappeared after. It stopped being active because, again, the workers were leaving. They thought it was cursed because of all the haunting that was going on at this location. Apparently it was crazy. But yeah, as I said before, the mill burnt down in 1873, and it is said to be officially a haunted place in Rhode Island. It's a fun place where you guys can go hiking and stuff like that, but that's practically all I have to say for today. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I'll see you either when we go to visit this place in real time. I'll probably be wearing the same outfit possibly, except for the leggings. I had an interview earlier today, so that went better than the last one. I hope you guys are doing beautifully. I'll probably see you either in the Fright Fest video, which I'll be recording with my phone, because I don't think I'm allowed to bring my Nikon in there, and then it'll be harder with my Nikon, so it'll be more easier if I use my phone for that. So again, it's going to be horizontal. So we're going to do that. So it's going to be fun, and I hope you guys enjoy. Happy Halloween if I don't make a video before Halloween. But if I do, I'll be going over the history again at Foster, Rhode Island. So that's in the works for next video. But actually, no, the Fright Fest video is going to be first, and then it's going to be that one. So I just want you guys to know. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Please like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace out, guys.